questions like this are going to be addressed in all of the Aqidah books, including Aqidah Tahawiyah. It depends on who's explaining it, but it is addressed. The concept of time is addressed in the Aqidah Tahawiyah, it's addressed in the Aqidah al-Athariyah, it's addressed in the Aqidah al-Ash'ariyah, al-Maturidiyah. Most of them will understand or have a nuanced understanding. It might be a little bit different, but all schools of Aqidah address this point.
So it starts from the, it's something we learn in the very basic.
Yes. In Aqidah specifically. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, any other questions? I think I saw a hand. Yes, you're excited. Go ahead.
So we have that expression, we have fear, we have hope and love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what I was a bit confused about is that, sorry, no, not on the main point. It was on the Tawbah point where you still face worldly punishments if you make Tawbah. Or you can.
That's if you're lucky. If you're blessed, yeah.
Yes, so like if you make Tawbah, you still face consequences in this life and the next, or one or the other, etc. So my question was, what kind of differs us on this point from the Christian theology? Like in the sense that Christians kind of believe that if you cannot, repentance is not enough. So like it has to be some kind of sacrifice or some kind of expiation, and of course different Christian beliefs. So what differs us from the Christians on that point? Or am I simply confusing like consequences?
No, this is good. It's a very good point. So what distinguishes the Islamic position from, let's say, the Christian position on this, the theology of salvation, is that someone else has to come to pay for your sins, becomes the ransom for your sins. Here, you yourself suffer consequences because of your own actions, and you also have to pay your dues. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could forgive you the first time, the second time, without punishment in that way because you didn't know. Allah forgives ignorance, Allah forgives flaw or fault that was unintended. But when it becomes repetitive, there will be punishment. And when it's a person of knowledge, there will be punishment. When you know, and you know well, and you have experience, then there will be some element of punishment. And an element of punishment could be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taking away from you the capacity to connect with Him. That's a punishment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes from your heart the capacity to get up for Fajr, takes away your heart the capacity to be there for people, takes away from your heart the capacity to be available, to be, to be present, to be in the moment. You're constantly distracted, you're constantly all over the place. You're not able to focus in your prayer, you're not able to have that gentle, meaningful dialogue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of those could be forms of, you can call it, as you said, consequential punishment, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُضِلَّ قَوْمًا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَاهُمْ حَتَّى يُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ مَا يَتَّقُونَ. What this means is, once Allah shows you the way, and it becomes very clear to you what you should be doing, when you fail to do it, there will be consequence. If you didn't know, Allah will overlook, Allah will pardon, there will be afu, there will be rahmah from Allah. But when you know, it becomes now an obligation to follow.
Then there are consequences.
There could be, let's say there could be. In yasha yu'adhibukum wa yasha yarhamkum. Allah could punish you or Allah could forgive you, depending on the extent of the sin, how deep you got, how much knowledge you had, opportunities for repentance, other factors, right? It could be, it's a bunch of factors. So Allah could punish you or Allah could forgive you. We usually, and this is going to be discussed today in the section, this exact point is going to be discussed today. When is it good to focus on the punishment and when is it good to focus on the reward? That becomes a psychological question. A question of what's going to keep you constructively focused on drawing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at different times, when you're falling into sin, you need to focus more on the punishment sometimes to get out of it. And as you're getting out of it, Shaitan's like, why are you trying? There's no point. You're doomed anyway. You've done so bad. Focus on the rahmah, right? So think about what's Shaitan whispering to you and how do you react to that to keep yourself balanced. And we'll see the whispers of Shaitan. As we read today, think about, could this be happening to you? Could this such situation apply to me? So I think with that, inshallah, it's a good point. to start, just so that we can, inshallah, read as much as we can from the discussion. طيب? So we're going to reread from last time, just the last paragraph, just to start from there, inshallah. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. يقول ابن القيم: وكثيرا ما تجد أدعية دعا بها قوم فاستجيب لهم، ويكون قد اقترن بالدعاء ضرورة صاحبه وإقباله على الله سبحانه وتعالى، أو حسنة تقدمت منه جعل الله سبحانه إجابة دعوتي شكرا لحسنته، أو صادف وقت إجابة ونحو ذلك فأجيبت دعوته، فيظن الظان أن السر في لفظ ذلك الدعاء، فيأخذه مجردا عن تلك الأمور التي قارنته من ذلك الداعي. وهذا كما إذا استعمل رجل دواء نافعا في الوقت الذي ينبغي على الوجه الذي ينبغي، فانتفع به، فظن غيره أن استعمال هذا الدواء بمجرده كاف في حصول المطلوب، كان غالطا. وهذا موضع يغلط فيه كثير من الناس، ومن هذا أنه قد يتفق دعاؤه باضطرار عند قبر فيجاب، فيظن الجاهل أن السر للقبر أو في القبر، ولم يعلم أن السر الاضطرار وصدق اللجأ إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى. فإذا حصل ذلك في بيت من بيوت الله كان أفضل وأحب إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى.
Many times you find that people will make a supplication and it is answered. The supplication could have corresponded with the supplicant's dire need, devotion to Allah, or a previous good deed he performed that caused a response from Allah as an act of gratitude for the good deed. Or it could have corresponded with a time wherein the supplication is sure to be answered, thus it was answered. So one may think that the secret is in the wording of the supplication itself, which leads someone to perform the supplication with the exclusion of the aforementioned reasons that it is coupled with relating to the supplicant. This is equal to a scenario in which someone takes a medicine at the most appropriate time in the most appropriate manner, thus benefiting from it, whilst others deem that merely taking the medicine without the connected factors is sufficient in attaining the objective. He is mistaken, and it is an issue that many people have erred in. An example of this is that someone could make a supplication in dire need, but happen to be at a grave site and is answered. So the ignorant one will think that the secret defining factor is the grave, whilst he fails to realize that the secret is in his need and truthful devotion to Allah, yet bearing in mind that if this takes place in a house from the houses of Allah, a mosque, it is better.
Yeah. So the idea here is that the dua, as we mentioned last time, could be very powerful and accepted because of the state that you're in and the khushu' that you're in. So as soon as you see the Kaaba for the first time, you have this amazing sense of awe. So your dua is powerful and it's accepted. Like the arrow, sharp, quick, and there's a lot of power and momentum. So it pierces through. So what people say is, oh, make sure that the first dua that you make when you see the Kaaba is really nice because it's going to be accepted. No, it's not that the first dua that you make when you see the Kaaba is going to be accepted. It's that feeling cultivates a sense of awe and khushu' that allows that dua to be accepted. Same thing when you're in the grave or around the grave. When you go to the grave and you're, looking at something. Or the Prophet ﷺ, or the place where Sulaiman is said to be buried, or the place where Dawood is said to be buried, or the place where Ismail is said to be buried, or the place where Yaqub is said to be buried, or the place where Fatima is said to be buried, or the place where Hassan and Hussein are said to be buried. You go to these grave sites, and when you're at that grave site, you're connecting with these moments, you're connecting with that person, you're connecting with the history of that person, so that puts you in a state of awe, and then you make the dua is accepted. So it's not that there's something specific or exceptional about that grave site. It's your ability to connect with that, right? The ability to connect with that history of the person that induces a sense of awe, and it's that sense of awe that allows that dua to be accepted, right? And that means that you can have the same effect even sitting in your own home. If you're able to read the biography of Salah ad-Din or the biography of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and tears are rolling down your eyes because of how connected you are to that person and the lessons that they teach you and the values that they hold, and you raise your hand to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you ask, Ya Allah, answer, and there's khushu' or sincerity, your heart is ready, your heart in a state where it's actually genuinely connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it will be what? It will be accepted. So we're talking about the right place, the right time, the right attitude, the right state, the right words. All of those things have to be there. And when they are there, the more that they are there, the higher the chance of the dua being accepted. Minus the things that neutralize the dua. We talked about that last time. Like the sins could neutralize the dua, bad income could neutralize the dua, haram income could neutralize the dua. These lusts of the eye or the heart can compromise the dua's impact. Let's continue. والأدعية والتعوذات بمنزلة السلاح والسلاح بضاربه لا بحده فقط فمتى كان السلاح سلاحا تاما لا آفة به والساعد ساعد قوي والمانع مفقود حصلت به النكاية في العدو ومتى تخلف واحد من هذه الثلاثة تخلف التأثير فإذا كان الدعاء في نفسه غير صالح أو الداعي لم يجمع بين قلبه ولسانه في الدعاء أو كان ثم مانعا من الإجابة لم يحصل الأثر.
The weapon is determined by the user, not solely on its target. Thus, whenever the weapon is without defect, while the user is strong, and the preventative barriers are absent, the enemy is defeated. However, whenever one of these factors is missing, the effect becomes absent. So if the supplication in itself is inappropriate, or the person supplicating has not actualized the harmony of presence between his heart and tongue in the supplication, or there is a further underlying connection between the tongue, the effect is not real.
Perfect. And that summarizes what we just said. Now let's continue. Now, this is where you need to pay attention because this part is going to require a bit of cognitive load. All right, Bismillah. وها هنا سؤال مشهور وهو أن المدعو به إن كان قد قدر لم يكن بد من وقوعه دعا به العبد أو لم يدعو وإن كان لم يكن قد قدر لم يقع سواء سأله العبد أو لم يسأله. Can you read, we're going to do this one sentence at a time. So read the first sentence.
This is a common question. It pertains to the subject of the supplication and the need for it. If it has already been decreed, it must come to pass whether an individual supplicates for it or not. On the other hand, if it has not been decreed, it will never come to pass whether an individual supplicates for it or not.
This is the question of qadar. I mean, if it's already meant to be, why make dua anyway? And if I make dua for something that's not meant to be, it's never going to happen. So what's the point of dua anyway? It's like a circular loop, right? So he's going to answer this question of dua and qadar and how they are related. So he says, فظنت, he's going to tell us the wrong answers before telling us the right answer. فظنت طائفة صحة هذا السؤال فتركت الدعاء وقالت لا فائدة فيه وهؤلاء مع فرط جهلهم وضلالهم متناقضون فإن طرد مذهبهم يوجب تعطيل جميع الأسباب فيقال لأحدهم إن كان الشبع والري قد قدر لك فلا بد من وقوعهما أكلت أو لم تأكل وإن لم يقدر لم يقع أكلت أو لم تأكل وإن كان الولد قدر لك فلا بد منه وطأت الزوجة والأمة أو لم تطأ وإن لم يقدر لم يكن فلا حاجة إلى التزوج والتسري وهلم جرا فهل يقول هذا عاقل أو آدمي بل الحيوان البهيم مفطور على مباشرة الأسباب التي بها قوامه وحياته فالحيوانات أعقل وأفهم من هؤلاء الذين هم كالأنعام بل هم أضل سبيلا. And he's taking a bit of a jab here. Go ahead.
Thus, they quit all supplication and said, there's no any benefit. Such people, along with their extremely great amount of ignorance, contradict themselves and applying their methodology to necessitate an annulment of all means of these benefits. It should be said to them, if the sense of satisfaction from food and the quenching of thirst has been decreed, it must inevitably take place whether you eat or not. Likewise, if it has not been decreed, it will not happen, whether you eat or not. In addition, if it has been decreed that people are to conceive a child, it must happen whether you perform intercourse with your wife or not. But if it has not been decreed, then there is no need for marriage or taking a concubine and so on and so forth. Can it be said that this is the reasoning of a sane person or human? In fact, the beastly animals are naturally inclined to undertake particular means in order to maintain themselves and their lives. Thus, animals are more discerning and understanding than the aforementioned groups who resemble the animals, or they are in fact more.
So what he's saying here is, if you say it's written, yes, but in your day-to-day, you know that your food is written for you, your income is written for you, but you still go out and eat. Your satiation is written for all of these things are written for you, but you still have things that we call means, asbab, the means to get to the end, right? So you can't just sit home and be like, okay, khalas, my money is written for me, I'm not going to lift a finger. My food is written for me. I'm not gonna chew. If it's meant to be, it's gonna happen. Khalas. My children are written for me, so I'm not gonna get married or nothing. Khalas, it's meant to be. It's meant to be. So that's the first reaction. He's responding to that, and he's giving you a very simple example from day-to-day experience. We believe certain things are written for us, yet we have things that we take as means. Now we'll continue from there. وتكايس بعضهم وقال الاشتغال بالدعاء من باب التعبد المحض يثيب الله عليه الداعي من غير أن يكون له تأثير في المطلوب بوجه ما، ولا فرق عن هذا الكيس بين الدعاء وبين الإمساك عنه بالقلب واللسان في التأثير في حصول المطلوب، وارتباط الدعاء عندهم به كارتباط السكوت ولا فرق. وقالت طائفة أخرى أكيس من هؤلاء، بل الدعاء علامة مجردة نصبها الله سبحانه أمارة على قضاء الحاجة، فمتى وفق العبد للدعاء كان ذلك علامة له وأمارة على أن حاجته قد قضيت. وهذا كما إذا رأينا غيما أسود باردا في زمن الشتاء فإن ذلك دليل وعلامة على أنه يمطر. وقالوا وهكذا حكم الطاعات مع الثواب والكفر والمعاصي مع العقاب هي أمارات محضة لوقوع الثواب والعقاب لا أنها أسباب له. وهكذا عندهم الكسر مع الانكسار والحريق مع الإحراق والإزهاق مع القتل ليس شيئا من ذلك سببا البتة، ولا ارتباط بينه وبين ما يترتب عليه إلا مجرد الاقتران العادي لا التأثير السببي. وخالفوا بذلك الحس والعقل والشرع والفطرة وسائر طوائف العقلاء، بل أضحكوا عليهم العقلاء.
Intelligence that occupying oneself with supplication is absolute act of worship, unconnected to anything else that Allah will reward supplication for, without there being any effect or outcome regarding the sought after objective in any capacity. From the perspective of the sustainer of intelligence, there lies no difference between performing supplication and withholding from it with his heart, and some far concerning the effect in attaining the objective, and that the connection with a supplication is equivalent to the connection to God. Their view without this.
So do you get this view? So they're saying that it's just ibadah. It's not connected to the answer of the dua. It's not going to change anything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes for you to ask. So you get a reward for doing it, but it doesn't affect anything. So it's not impacting what's written. It's not going to affect anything. But it's good to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it's ibadah. Like praying, physically praying and making dua. They're both forms of prayer that you're going to be rewarded for in Jannah, but it doesn't affect the actual outcome of the dua. Another group who's better, who's got a bit more intellect, so he's raising them in terms of his perception of how intelligent these positions are. The first one is very, he considers it to be not intelligent at all. The second one is a little hint of intelligence. The third one is a little bit more intelligence. The fourth is a bit, and then he's going to give you the correct answer. Yeah. Another group.
That the supplication is merely a sign that Allah has placed orders to signify the decree of a particular act. So whenever a servant has been granted success with the form supplication, it stands as a sign and a symbol that their affair has been fulfilled. Such as the dark and cold clouds of the season. The winter storm season, they exist as a proof and a sign that it will rain.
So the dua is a sign that Allah has opened in your heart, created in your heart the desire for repentance or the desire for something good. So they're saying, if you're suddenly feeling this overwhelming desire to just make dua for something, it could be a sign that Allah is bringing your attention to it. And so that's the way they understand the dua. The dua is a sign of something that is about to happen, right? So it's actually from Allah. Allah puts into your heart the desire for the thing that is good for you or the thing that should be away from you. And then as a result, you manifest the dua. Now, of course, this has problems from a qadar point of view as well, which is why he says it's a better position, but it's still a problem.
They are only symbols that indicate the reward or the punishment, not that they are a means to the right. In their belief, the same applies to breakages in the break, burning and being burnt, dying and death, all of which are neither means to cause the outcome, nor do they possess any connection
Perfect. So ibadah does not cause a reward. Ibadah is a sign that the reward is coming. Being far away from God, Allah, does not cause punishment. It is actually a sign that punishment is about to happen. Now, this is a position, right, that some of the, I would say, within the Islamic tradition, a position that some have taken, but again, it is problematic. طيب? All of these, yeah. All of the above.
All of the above are conflicted with the natural senses, sound intellect, and the correct legislation, the natural inclination, and of the other groups who exercise themselves. In fact, they have become the laughing stock of all the intellect.
والصواب أنها هنا قسما ثالثا غير ما ذكره السائل، وهو أن هذا المقدور قدر بأسباب، ومن أسبابه الدعاء، فلم يقدر مجردا عن سببه ولكن قدر بسببه، فمتى أتى العبد بالسبب وقع المقدور، ومتى لم يأتي بالسبب انتفى المقدور، وهذا كما قدر الشبع والري بالأكل والشرب، وقدر الولد بالوطء، وقدر حصول الذرع بالبذر، وقدر خروج نفس الحيوان بذبحه، وكذلك قدر دخول الجنة بالأعمال ودخول النار بالأعمال، وهذا القسم هو الحق والذي حرمه السائل ولم يوفق له، وحينئذ فالدعاء من أقوى الأسباب، فإذا قدر وقوع المدعو به بالدعاء لم يصح أن يقال لا فائدة في الدعاء، كما لا يقال لا فائدة في الأكل والشرب وجميع الحركات والأعمال، وليس شيء من الأسباب أنفع من الدعاء ولا أبلغ في حصول المطلوب. ولما كان الصحابة رضي الله عنهم أعلم الأمة بالله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأفقههم في دينه، كانوا أقوم بهذا السبب وشروطه وآدابه من غيرهم، وكان عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه يستنصر به على عدوه، وكان أعظم جنديه، وكان يقول للصاحب لستم تنصرون بكثرة وإنما تنصرون من السماء، أي بالدعاء، وكان يقول إني لا أحمل هم الإجابة ولكن هم الدعاء، فإذا ألهمت الدعاء فإن الإجابة معه. وأخذ الشاعر هذا فنظمه فقال لو لم ترد نيل ما أرجو وأطلبه من جود كفه ما عودتني الطلبا، فمن ألهم الدعاء فقد أريد به الإجابة، فإن الله سبحانه وتعالى يقول ادعوني أستجب لكم، وقال وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان. وفي سنن ابن ماجه من حديث أبو هريرة قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من لم يسأل الله يغضب عليه.
That there is a third category that has not been mentioned by the question. It is that the decreed event has been realized through a cause, and from its causes is supplication. It did not happen without a cause, rather it had a cause. Therefore, whenever the servant fulfills the cause, the decreed objective shall come to pass, and the opposite is also occurs. This is the same as the sense of hunger and thirst, being alleviated through food and drink, the conception of a child through intercourse, growing plants through the sowing of seed, and the death of an animal through its blood. Also admitted into paradise through actions, and so is admitted into the death. This is the correct category, and it is the one that the questioner has been denied from knowing and not citing.
Continue.
Supplication is among the strongest means. If the object that is being supplicated for comes to pass, it would not be for us to say there is no benefit in supplication. And it is not for us to say there's no benefit in eating, drinking, or any movement or action. There is no other cause more beneficial or profound than performing the supplication in attaining the objective. Since the companions are the most knowledgeable people in this nation about Allah and His Messenger, and those who help the most to understanding, it is only appropriate that they were the most accomplished in implementing the deen, the conditions and mannerisms that anyone else. Umar ibn Khattab would seek to triumph over his enemies with it, and it proved to be his mightiest force. He would say to his companions, you are not granted victory due to your large numbers, instead you are granted victory from above the heavens. He would also say, I do not worry about the response, rather I worry about making the supplication. If I have been inspired to supplicate, then surely the response comes in. Poet carried his meaning and composed it in a line of poetry. He said, if you did not want to give me what I hope and ask for from your generous hand, you would not have made me accustomed to ask. But whoever has been moved to perform a supplication, and it is inevitable that a response has been desired. Allah says, وقال ربكم ادعوني استجب لكم. Invoke me, I shall respond to you. He also said, وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إلى الدعاء. If my servant asks you about me, indeed I am near, I respond to the call of the one who calls. Perfect. So again, the image that I give to kind of make this a bit more accessible, and it's very simple. It's about cause and effect, right? And means and ends. There's a university. The university says you must meet specific criteria to be admitted. So you have to meet the criteria to apply. Now, your application does not necessitate your acceptance. Your application is an attempt to garner that acceptance. Only when your application meets the criteria does the acceptance take place. But had the university not given you the choice to apply, you would not have been able to apply. You would not have been able to make that decision. So this is same with the qadar. Allah has made part of the qadar the dua. The dua becomes a means to attain certain things. Only when you do the dua coupled with everything else will the dua be accepted. But it is a means. It's a means to attaining what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for you out of the many possibilities that you could attain. So he's saying it's one of the most powerful ways to attain. Just like hustling and bustling and waking up and working hard is a means to attain, just like eating food or going out to study is a means to attain education. Dua also is a means to attain whatever it is that you're asking for. It's a means, and it's a powerful means. And he's going to give you examples from the Quran and the Sunnah by saying, Umar used to say, it's not by the large numbers that you're granted victory, it's from above. So from above, one of those forces from above is dua, right? And he's going to give many examples again about that impact of cause and effect. So let's move on to evidence of this can be found in the Quran and the Sunnah. Continue reading. No, evidence of this can be found. Next section. Yeah. Yeah.
In places, the universal and legislative judgments appear and are arranged in the most appropriate manners, such as the statement of Allah, فَلَمَّا عَتَوْا عَمَّا نَهُوا عَنْهُ قُلْنَا لَهُمْ كُونُوا قِرَدَةً خَاسِئِينَ. So when they were insolent about that which they had been forbidden, we said to them, be apes despised. And his statement, فَلَمَّا
آسفونا منهم
فلما آسفونا انتقمنا منهم فأغرقناهم أجمعين. And when they angered us, we took retribution from them and drowned them all. And his statement, والسارق والسارقة فاقطعوا أيديهما جزاء بما كسبا نكالا من الله والله عزيز حكيم. The thief, the male and the female, amputate their hands in recompense for what they committed.
Okay, so what he's saying here is there's cause and effect even with how close you are to Allah and the reward and the punishment. So فَلَمَّا عَتَوْا عَمَّا نُهُوا عَنْهُ, when they continued to do what they were told not to do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كُونُوا قِرَدَةً خَاسِئِينَ, become apes that are despised. What is this, become apes that are despised? Who knows the context? Yeah?
But they dug ditches to try and catch the fish anyways, right? It was like a loophole basically around the meaning, and then also gonna share them with the aim.
Yeah. So when they continue to find ways around the rule instead of actually abiding by the rules, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took what made them distinctively human. What makes you human? Your capacity to think, to decide, to your agency, your choice, your cognition. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took that away from them. So this is understood by some to be a metaphorical punishment, that Allah made them like animals, made them like apes, in the sense that they're close, very close. They resemble humans. The closest that resemble humans are the apes. There's a lot of intelligence behaviorally, but in terms of cognition and decision making and actual intelligence, it's missing. So there's a very beautiful example in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them appear to be human, made them appear like everybody else,
but Allah took away that insight from them, the ability to really understand the purpose and the context. Allah took that away from them because He gave it to them many, many times and they misused it, or they chose not to use it effectively. And this is a rule. If Allah keeps giving you something and you don't use it, Allah will take it away from you. So Allah gives you a platform, you don't use that platform, what's going to happen? Allah will take it away from you. Allah gives you beauty and grace, and you misuse that beauty and grace to basically attract to you instead of kind of using it for good in the ways that are lawful, Allah will take it away from you. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you articulation, eloquence, and you misuse it, Allah will take it away from you. And then there are some of the ulama, scholars of tafsir, who understood this to be actually physical, like not metaphorical, that Allah actually made them apes. And that's an opinion as well, but I don't think it's the most strong opinion, and Allahu a'lam. Tamam. Same thing with the second ayah. فَلَمَّا آسَفُونَ انْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ فَأَغْرَقْنَاهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. When they continued to basically what? Asafuna. When they continued to basically make excuses, kind of like, somebody comes up and says, I'm asif. When you're teaching a kid about consequence, so you tell them, when you do something bad, you got to say, I'm sorry. So they start thinking, oh, I'm just going to do the bad thing and say, I'm sorry. So slap her brother. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's not how it works. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is literally saying, فَلَمَّا أَسَفُونَ. When they continue to use the tawbah as an excuse, and that made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upset with them, angry with them, انتقمنا منهم. That is when the punishment came, the retribution came and drowned them all, Fir'aun and his people. وَالسَّارِقُ وَالسَّارِقَةُ. Same thing with theft. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks for the hand of the thief to be cut off? And by the way, the Sharia has very specific rules on that. There's got to be a specific amount. It's got to be not the first offense. It's got to be witnessed by some. It's all of these conditions have to be met, and your basic needs have to be met. For example, do you guys know in the Sharia, if you are in a position where your leader in the community, like the Amir of your locality, has not guaranteed you housing, basic housing, has not guaranteed you basic education free, has not guaranteed you basic access to medical care, humanitarian, all of these things are not guaranteed, and you're stealing because you have no choice but to basically do that, resort to that, the leader is the one that's actually called to account, and he's the one or she's the one that may be receiving the punishment of the hand being cut off, right? So just to contextualize. But the idea here is that this is a cause, or this is an effect due to the cause. She's giving you all these examples of cause and effect. They became bad, so Allah punished them. It's not that Allah punished them and He chose that punishment for them. They had agency, they had choice, they made the wrong choice. Because of the wrong choice, they suffered. Now, this is very important because a lot of people say, how do we know? Where's the evidence? So He's giving all of these ayat in the Quran to make that case very strong. It's not that you compelled to. You can't say, oh, this happened because it was meant to be. I was meant to be in this haram relationship, right? I was meant to drink this glass of wine. I was meant to watch this, and there must be some hidden wisdom that Allah is allowing me to extract from all of this. Because that's what He's basically fighting against. No, you did this to yourself. Don't throw the blame on anybody else, right? It's your cause. This is the effect. And the same thing with the dua. The dua is a cause that Allah has put out there for you to choose to have an effect as you like it, right? As you're asking for. Tamam? So He gives you all of these examples. I think we get the idea. He gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yani, mashallah, He went all out. Tamam? 20 examples so that you can't come and say, I don't get it. I don't understand. Tamam? All right. But however, some of this might be important to go through. So we're gonna, let's see, where can we pick up from? Okay, let's read from, in summary, page 47 for you. Yeah, keep reading. Read from there.
In summary, the Quran from beginning to end clearly defines that the recompense for evil and good and the universal occurrences have a reason. In fact, the judgments in the worldly life and the hereafter, as well as their harms and benefits, are all in accordance to their causes and particular actions. Therefore, whoever truly understands this point and considers it thoroughly will benefit from it immensely and not ignorantly and erroneously depend on the divine decree as an excuse for his inability, neglect, and squandering of affairs, which will only equate to a reversal of affairs in that his reliance will amass to non-action and his non-action will be his method of reliance. Rather, the knowledgeable one will refer the divine decree to other decreed matters and explain it in the same manner. As a matter of fact, it is not possible to live any other way. Hunger, thirst, cold, and other dangers and cautionary things are from the divine decree, and the entire creation endeavors to repel such decreed matters with other acts that have also been decreed. That is how it would appear to the one who has been granted success by Allah and guided. He would repel the decreed punishment in the hereafter with the decreed act of repentance, correct faith, and righteous actions. This is the scale of the undesirable divine decree, punishments, etc. And the opposite is also correct. As the Lord of both realms is one, his wisdom is perfect and one, and is not contradictory, nor does it disaffirm itself.
Beautiful. Tamam. So, you wake up in the morning. Which qadar are you going to choose today? You decide to wake up with Fajr and pray in the masjid. You are in the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the rest of the day. You decide to get in the morning, vibe, move, harakah. You're going to get some rizq. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said the morning hour is the most blessed in rizq. You decide to just sit back and relax and chill and sleep. There's a qadar there too. You chose the qadar of complacency and stillness and whatnot, and that's going to come with an effect. So you're choosing your qadar each and every single day. And you're choosing between many qadars. And when you choose to make dua, you're also choosing a qadar there. You're choosing to get Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help, to intervene, to act on your behalf, to support you, to protect, to block a harm. That's part of the qadar too. Does that make sense? So this is the explanation of qadar. Now this is, again, a lot of people misunderstand qadar as predisposition. Oh, I'm predisposed to this. Oh, it's destiny. No, very simple. You are choosing and making and creating your own destiny each and every single day, because every action has a consequence. And every decision has an impact. And every place comes with a set of feelings and a set of inclinations. You go to a masjid, you're going to have specific feelings. You're going to go to a nightclub, you're going to have very different feelings. And that creates in your mind also more possibilities. That's why you lower the gaze. Because when you're looking at something, it creates the possibility in your mind, in your imagination. That alters, right? It creates a whole other cascades of events that you've created for yourself, options that you've opened up for yourself that would not have been possible had you stayed where you are supposed to stay and had you stayed away from what you're supposed to stay away from. Does that, you can add a point? Yeah, go ahead. But it's quick because the next section is really important. I want to make sure we get it done. Faddali. Minor, remember we said minor and major. Major qadar is the final piece. Minor qadar includes all of those possibilities that you're altering each and every single day. The final effect, the final copy. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captures it and has access to it even as you're doing and even before you do it, because it's not limited by time. The one that is written every year for Ramadan, you mean, for the next year? So no, that's still minor qadar, because that can still be impacted. I'll give you an example. I'm in the Laylatul Qadr, making dua. Ya Allah, grant me pick something. A pony. طيب. Ya Allah, grant me a pony. Ya Allah, grant me a pony. Ya Allah, grant me a pony. And I'm like crying, and subhanallah, like I'm really, really in the mood and everything. All the dua, contingencies and requirements are met. Allah has written for me on Laylatul Qadr a pony. Now, I leave the masjid, 6 days of Shawwal, I'm like high on my iman, everything is great. Pony is meant to come. But then I decide to go to the stables, and at the stables, I'm touching all these horses, having a great time, petting them, enjoying my time. I'm like, inshallah, soon, I'll have my own pony. And then it's the dhuhr time. And I decide to be distracted by the ponies to a point where I don't pray dhuhr on time. And then asr on time. And I'm like, oh my God, I skipped dhuhr and asr. So now I'm combining dhuhr and asr, barely before maghrib. And this happens consistently. The qadr, which I wrote for myself, I just undid by showing that I'm not ready to get what I'm asking for, what was written for me. So what happens is it gets deferred. And it keeps getting deferred until I fix my action. And I fix myself. So it's written. But it's written as long as you meet the criteria. Allah has given it for you. It's written. But the criteria of how you get there, you need to connect the dots. You need to meet the conditions. It's there. It's written. It's waiting for you. Your marriage is written. It's waiting for you. It's a matter of you having to make the connections, having to make the dots. Your meal is written for you. You just have to claim it. Your whatever is written for you. You just have to claim it. And as long as you keep pushing or making the wrong decisions, you're constantly pushing that qadr away. So just because something is written doesn't mean it's going to happen right away, because you still have to meet the conditions in order for you to get it. And the more conditions you keep failing, the more it's going to be pushed and pushed further and further. And it may not come at all in the akhirah, in the dunya, and you may have to, it might not even come in the akhirah because you basically fail to attain it through your decision making. Final, all the possibilities and decisions and reversals. Yeah, no. Yeah. He's arguing against the deterministic opinion. This is the strongest opinion. This is the safest opinion. According to Ibn al-Qayyim and according to many, I would say most scholars, this is the strongest opinion. And it's the safest, and it's the one that makes most sense. Right? However, if you have the evidence to back whatever position you want to take, as long as from the Quran and the Sunnah, as long as it's a mainstream opinion, that's fine. Tamam? But like I've said, this is the opinion that I would be comfortable meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with and living and dying upon. Other opinions, I can't say that, or else I would have taken that opinion. طيب. ولكن, and this is where it gets now interesting. All of this is very simple, but I'm happy that it might be simple, but I think a lot of us overlook the detailed conversation about these things. And again, he's anchoring, because when we talk about dua being a tool and a weapon, we have to understand how it works. So he's giving us all of these specifics in a simple, accessible way, so we can get to, inshallah, the point of dua is powerful, and it's a tool, it's a cause. Here's how it works within the larger, concept of qadar. All right? Now he says, لكن يبقى عليه أمران بهما تتم سعادته وفلاحه. أحدهما أن يعرف تفاصيل أسباب الشر والخير ويكون له بصيرة في ذلك بما يشاهده في العالم وما جربه في نفسه وغيره وما سمعه من أخبار الأمم قديما وحديثا. ومن أنفع ما في ذلك تدبر القرآن فإنه كفيل بذلك على أكمل الوجوه، وفيه أسباب الشر والخير جميعا مفصلة مبينة. ثم السنة فإنها شقيقة القرآن وهو الوحي الثاني، ومن صرف إليهما عنايته اكتفى بهما من غيرهما، وهما يريانك الخير والشر وأسبابهما حتى كأنك تعاين ذلك عيانا. وبعد ذلك إذا تأملت أخبار الأمم وأيام الله في أهله وأهل طاعته وأهل معصيته، طابق ذلك ما علمته من القرآن والسنة، ورأيت تفاصيل ما أخبر الله به وعد به، وعلمت من آياته في الآفاق ما يدلك على أن القرآن حق، وأن الرسول حق، وأن الله ينجز وعده لا محالة، فالتاريخ تفصيل لجزئيات ما عرفنا الله ورسوله به من الأسباب الكلية للخير والشر. This is such a powerful paragraph. I need you to pay attention to this carefully because it sounds so simple, but it is very profound. Continue reading.
However, two matters have yet to be mentioned. Through them, one can attain complete happiness and success. The first, to know the details of evil and good, whilst possessing insight into that gained by the observations one makes of the world, personal experiences, and whatever he has heard about previous and current civilizations. The most beneficial way to execute this is by thoroughly contemplating the Quran, because it contains this information in the most complete manner and contains all the reasons for evil and good in detail and precision. The Quran is followed by the Sunnah, the prophetic way. It is its counterpart and the second revelation. Thus, whoever dedicates their concern to them both shall be sufficed with them over all else, as they will both portray the good and evil along with their causes, as if you are literally observing it.
Now, this is very important because it's saying, if you want to know how cause and effect works, you want to know cause, impact. Look at the Quran because it will continuously give you the cause and effect. If you engage in riba, you're inviting war from Allah and His Messenger into your life. So you're wondering why there's no barakah in your life. Here's one of the reasons why barakah is lost. Riba. Riba, making money off of money. Making money without effort actually being put. Interest in some ways. There's going to be scattering of barakah that happens when you do certain things, right? What goes around comes around. That's part of the qadar. Look at Yusuf's story. How much patience he had to endure. But how many tests did he go through? And imagine from like modern points of views. Yusuf was a young child who was abused by his brothers. So familial abuse. Then after that, he was thrown into a well, physical abuse. Then after that, he was taken into a family where the woman that's supposed to take care of him basically sexually came onto him. That's sexual abuse from a person of power and a person of trust and a person that is close to you. Then after that, he was subject to seeing women cut their hands because of his beauty. I mean, the story, we know the story, right? What kind of abuse is that? How would you, what would you classify that? It's like abuse on many levels. And then he goes to jail, and in jail, that's a form of abuse itself, right? And then after that, when he's in jail, subhanAllah, he doesn't give up. He has a conversation, a relationship with the people in jail. Imagine by that time, most of us would have given up, like forget humans. Humans are disgusting. Humans are horrible. But he's actually taking from his own food, giving to the people in jail, the inmates. These are, in many ways, the worst of society. He's still good to them. So imagine how he's able to cultivate that goodness, despite all of that letdown from everybody around him. And despite that, the people that he builds relationships with in jail forget about him. Forget about him. When they come out of jail, right? Neglect, disappointment. He's able to overcome all of that. And in the end of it, what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates him to a point now where everybody that used to, all of them now come dependent on him. Not because that's not his intention. Some of us are like, it's okay, keep going, persist, patience. One day I'll take over. One day all these guys are gonna come begging me for my If that's your intention, it'll never happen. From the beginning, what was his intention? He said, I'm not interested. I'm not in it for this dunya. No, I'm focused on Allah. Doesn't matter what happens. So literally, subhanAllah, and you have all of these examples. He's telling you, if you look at the Quran, you'll see how life actually works. You'll see what matters. You'll see the causes, the effects that you should be focused on. You see the decisions they have to make each and every single day. And the Sunnah is the second revelation because the lived experience of the Prophet ﷺ. He taught you how to cope, how to do this, all of that. And then in addition to that, he says, and the third lived experience is history. History. Because when you look at history in the long scale, not when you zone into like one of the episodes, one of the chapters. Because if you zone into the story of Yusuf where he's being abused in jail, you'd be like, oh my God, this is unjust. Where's the divine justice? So a lot of the time what happens is we narrow in on one of the chapters, one of the small episodes in the large scale of history, and we don't focus on the larger constants which exist. across history. So he's saying that's a form of cause and effect. You want to make sense of what's happening and how these causes work in the world, the real world. You look at the Quran, you look at the lived experience of the Prophet ﷺ, which he calls the second revelation, because it reveals. It's the second layer contextualized in the Quran, adding more context to the Quran. And then history, if you become a student of history, that's what he's saying. He says you become a better understander. You become better in your understanding of how cause and effect works and how essentially qadr works. Right? Now, this is very important. وَالْأَمْرُ الثَّانِي, continue reading.
And gave Allah that the people of obedience and disobedience experience, whilst corresponding this to the knowledge that you have learned from the Quran and Sunnah, and having come across the details that Allah has contained in the promise, and you know His signs that He has set in the horizon, you will come to realize that the Quran is the truth, the messenger is the true messenger, that Allah will fulfill His promise without fail. This is because history is a detailed account from aspects that Allah and His messenger have informed us of in relation to the overall causes for good and evil.
Continue. The second, beware.
The second, to be aware of misleading yourself in your implementation of the causes. This is from the most important matters. The servant will unavoidably know that sins and needlessness are from the causes for harm in his own worldly affairs and his hereafter. Yet his soul may mislead itself and erroneously depending on the pardon and forgiveness of Allah at times, procrastination at times, uttering a superficial word that only has an effect on the tongue to seek forgiveness at times, performing permissible actions at times, gaining some knowledge at times, falsely using the excuse of the divine decree at times, and excusing oneself by the actions of his peers and following those greater in stature than him at other times.
Many people, this is very important. I want to finish with this. Continue. Many people assume
that they can perpetrate whatever they want before saying, I ask forgiveness, and all effects of the sin will be eradicated. A man who falsely ascribes himself to knowledge once said to me, I do as I please, then I say, Subhanallah wa bihamdih 100 times, and all of my sins shall be forgiven. As it has been authentically reported from the Prophet ﷺ, who said, whoever says in a day, Subhanallah wa bihamdih 100 times, his misdeeds will be pardoned, even if they amounted to the foam of the sea. Another man from the people of Mecca said to me, if any of us performed a sin, regardless of its proportion, he would bathe and circumambulate around the Kaaba 7 times, and it would be wiped from him. Another individual said to me, it has been authentically reported from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, a servant committed a sin and then said, oh my Lord, I have sinned, please forgive me. Thus he is forgiven. Then he remains without committing any sin for a while, and then again commits another sin and says, oh my Lord, I have committed another sin, please forgive me. Thus he is forgiven. Then he remains without committing another sin for a while, and then commits another sin and says, oh my Lord, I've committed another sin, please forgive me. And Allah says, my slave has known that he has a Lord who forgives sins and punishes for it. I therefore have forgiven my slave, he can do as he wills. He continued to say, I do not have any doubt that I have a Lord who forgives the sins and punishes for them.
This particular category.
This particular category of people has clung onto the texts about having hope and has relied on them and has attached onto them with both hands. If he is admonished for a mistake and being engrossed into it, he begins to recount all that he has memorized pertaining to the limitless mercy and forgiveness of Allah from the words of hope. The ignoramuses who are part of this category of people have mentioned strange and peculiar statements such as, increase in whatever you can find of mistakes if you will arrive to one who is generous. Another of them said, purifying oneself from sin is ignorance of the limitlessness of Allah's pardon. Another one said, abandoning sin is audacity in the face of the forgiveness of Allah and a belittlement of it. Abu Muhammad ibn Hazm said, I have witnessed some of them say, Allah, I seek refuge in you from infallibility. From amongst these deluded individuals are those who cling on to the doctrine of Jabr, which is the belief that a servant does not have any free will to act or any choice. Instead, he is compelled to commit disobedience. Also from them are those who are deceived by the doctrine of Irja, in that faith is comprised of a mere attestation, whilst actions are excluded from faith, and the faith of an immoral person equates to the faith of angels, Jibreel and Mikael. Additionally, from them are those who are deceived by their love for the ascetics, the scholars, and the righteous. They frequent their gravesites, plead to them, seek their intercession, and seek that they are intermediaries between himself and Allah, and asks Allah by the right and holiness. From that,
Okay, beautiful. So he's mentioning here all of the ways that people misunderstand how cause and effect works, where they began to rely on the wrong cause, right? The wrong cause. And of course, Ibn al-Qayyim, he's a student of Ibn Taymiyyah, so he's really trying to reinforce the idea of graves, 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 stop worshiping the graves, stop worshiping the graves. But it's important to nuance that a little bit from the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, so I'll do that quickly. That point, and also the point of forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of people will say, I am the grandson of this, I'm the granddaughter of this. So they rely on that lineage, right? They'll rely on the fact that they are an inheritor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or they're from Ahlul Bayt, or they're from the Shafi'i family, or their father is this, or I'm around the Sheikh all the time. That's not going to impact you. That's not going to have any real impact or difference. It's about the decisions that you make each and every single day. And a lot of people with their weird gymnastics, intellectual gymnastics, they'll somehow justify the sin. So they'll say to themselves, you know what? I can't really be so outrageously removed from the mercy of Allah that I rely on my own actions. So my sins are a constant reminder of my flaws. And it's in that flaw that I'm humbled and I'm brought close to Allah. MashaAllah alayk. Really nice. Well done. Right? Oh, my sins just continuously give me experience of what not to do. So that inshallah, one day I'll build the courage to do what needs to be done. Like what's his name? The guy who Thomas Edison. It wasn't him, by the way. He stole that. But like the idea of Thomas Edison trying 1,000 times the light bulb, finally 909 times didn't work, but 1,000 times worked. So the idea, this is how people justify the sin. Inshallah, if I keep trying all the sins, then I'll remember how it doesn't work. Inshallah, one day I'll build the repertoire to be able to really understand. Or I've heard this too. I will never be able to give proper da'wah if I don't know what it's like to be in sin. So in order for me to be able to connect with the sinners, I need to have more sin. So my sin is an experience that I use to bring me close to the people that I try to have a relationship with and try to affect and try to bring close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for my sins more than I do for the good, because the good is benefiting me, but the sin is benefiting people that are sin each and every single day. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So a lot of these examples that he's giving you are actually lived experiences. And by the way, we're talking about what, a couple hundred years after Ibn al-Qayyim wrote this, close to what, 800 years? And still the same issues, the same kind of concepts are still being mentioned and are still being heard. So just keep that in mind. People say, oh, I'm gonna do whatever I want, inshallah, Umrah is coming up, Hajj is coming up. I'll delay Hajj. I can't do Hajj right now. I'm too young. It's expensive. I'll do much, much later after I've sinned more. So that way, inshallah, I can, delete and I have less to do before I meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of these are very dangerous positions to have. Now, in addition to that, remember, and I'll finish with this, inshallah, and then we'll continue from next time. Visiting graves, is it good, is it bad? Who can tell me? Yes? Of course. So visiting graves is actually really highly recommended. The Prophet ﷺ told people not to visit the graves at a time in which the aqidah of the Muslims was still being developed. There was a lot of bad behavior that would happen at the graves. When the Prophet ﷺ taught the Muslims the etiquette, don't slap yourself, don't beat yourself up. People used to lie down next to the grave, be like, oh yeah, dear Lord, I can't live without my husband anymore. Why didn't you take me? I'd rather for me to be underground than you to be underground. All this. So Islam came to kind of like, refine that. And then the Prophet ﷺ gave the license for people to visit the grave. Is it haram to make dua using somebody else's name? No? Explain. Okay, but can you say out of the love for the Lord of Muhammad? Out of love for Muhammad. Oh Lord of Muhammad, help me. Yes. So let me explain, and I do have to get going because of the Halaqat Isna. So the companions used to say, remember the hadith of the three people who were stuck inside a cave. And each of them appealed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using something that they did for the sake of Allah. One person said, Ya Allah, I did this to my mother. If it was good, open the cave, help me out. And the cave would open a little bit. That's a metaphorical hadith, some would say, to show that yes, your actions, you can appeal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using your actions. That's from the sunnah. Many examples of that. So if your love is an action, you can appeal to your love for somebody else as an action that you do, not an action that somebody else does. So let me explain. And this is from the sunnah. Ahmad ibn Hanbal used to visit the graves and he used to say, Ya Allah, out of the love that I have in my heart for Umar and Abu Bakr and the Prophet ﷺ, forgive me. So because the love that I have in my heart for them, forgive me. And they say, if this love is sincere, Ya Allah, for your sake, forgive me. Tamam? But they wouldn't say, out of the love that you have for Muhammad, forgive me. Or out of the love that Muhammad has for you, forgive me. Do you see the difference? It's very subtle. Which is why if somebody is at the graveyard making dua, you have no right to slap them and be like, get out of here. This is bid'ah. Like, who are you to open up their heart and see what exactly they're asking for and what language they're saying? And somebody might be saying words, but their emotion and intention are very, very, very what? They just don't know. They're in hearts like, I love you, I love you, Allah, out of love. So there are words that they have inherited, but they don't know the full meanings of these words. So Ibn al-Qayyim's position was actually quite, subhanAllah, it's misunderstood by others later to justify, beating people at the graves and whatnot. And it's not appropriate because you don't know what's in people's hearts. But as long as you're appealing out of the love that you have in your heart for somebody else who's righteous to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's fine. But is that the only thing? I'm going to say, Ya Allah, out of the love that I have for Muhammad, help me. You're not praying, you're not doing anything. Then your arrow's like what? Your bow is broken, your arrow is broken. It's not gonna work. So like everything again within context. Does that clarify? Does that help? Perfect. Now this is very important to, in amongst the politics that we're living in, Athari, Ash'ari, Sufi politics, just keep that in mind, inshallah. We'll see you next week. Barakallahu feekum. Subhanakallahumma hamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.